I'm casually dating this guy, but I don't know if I want a future with him. Then stop dating him, my friend. I know I could grow. I know I could grow from the experience of dating him. I've never dated before. What are your thoughts? You don't need dating experience to be dateable, because your dating experience should come from you dating God and dating yourself. You don't have to learn anything from another man. You can learn all you know from God, and that's why I always say that you don't have to have experience to prepare yourself when it comes to what God is in control of. And so the benefits of dating God is that when you date God, and what I mean by dating, I ain't talking about getting no candles and no roses and then you cooking God a meal and then food get cold. That's just a waste of food. God ain't gonna sit there and eat that food. He's a, you know what I'm saying? He don't eat like that. All right. But what I would say is dating God is saying, I'm gonna set this date every other day or these days of the week. I'm going to spend time with God. I'm going to go out and maybe get a pastry. I'm going to go out for a drive. I'm going to create maybe in the kitchen, I'll create space where I got my clipboard and I talk to God. Date God. Set dates where you engage with God to receive his love, to meditate on his love for you. And as you date God, and then you will begin to date yourself. Now you begin to get into self-help. Now you go on dates where it's you time, where you go to a gym. That's a date between you and you and you. Another date between you and you is going to your favorite restaurant. You don't need somebody else to make dating enjoyable. And then when you date God and date yourself, then you trust God for the person that he wants you to date for the rest of your life. And so what I would do is casually dating is will confuse you. Casual dating is just not wise, my friend. And so you said, I'm casually dating this guy, but I don't know if I want. If you don't know, let it go. If you don't know, let it go. That's for anything. If you don't know from God that this is what you're supposed to do, let it go immediately, because that's going to be the very thing the enemy uses to drift you further away from God, to get you deeper into compromise, and eventually potentially surrounded by consequences, but inevitably unnecessary soul ties, strongholds, confusion, concerns, all that kind of stuff. And so don't worry about, oh my gosh, I've never dated and I need to date to have experience. That's like saying, well, oh my gosh, if we should live together and see what it's like to be married. No, that's just stupidity, because it's easier to shack up than it is to marry. And what happened is, when you shack up with a person and then you marry them, the pressure of marriage breaks y'all. But when you shacking up and there's no pressure of marriage and there's no honor of marriage, there's no marriage there, it's kind of easier to do things, because marriage brings another level of standards and whatever, and you will be messed up. So what I'm saying is, you don't have to have experience to be effective. One of the best testimonies you can have is that I didn't have that testimony. And so what I would do, my friend, is in that relationship now. If you don't know, let it go. If you don't know, don't go. So you said, I know I could grow. Don't worry about that. We got to elevate that thinking, my friend. Because I get a lot of questions like this, and I don't want people to think that, oh my gosh, because that's not fair to him. If you don't know about a person, but that person thinks he knows about you, then that man is going to feel a certain type of way when you just kind of say, well, this whole time was just an experiment. The men don't want no men. If they're pursuing, they don't want no experiment. So what I don't want you to do is eat that man's food, take that man's money as far as in dating, and use that man for experience. And because he's thinking, no, we're going to the next level with this. And so we just need to fix that thinking, and so that you won't fall into any sinking, and then you have your life messed up and it's your consequence. So what I would do is, I will let it go today. And how you let it go is by being honest with him. Say, you know what? Right now, I don't know if this is of God. And my ultimate goal in life is to be in the will of God. And I just don't know about us. This doesn't mean that you wait for me. This doesn't mean that this is me praying about us. Right now, I'm praying about me and God and what I need to do. And my apologies if I led you on. I think you're a great guy, but I just think that I approached this wrong, and I take full responsibility for it. And so, unfortunately, we'll have to stop this because I don't want to lure you down a path and then one day I just bounce and I leave you hurt. So I'd rather you be stung now than to be drastically hurt later. Sometimes it's better to sting a person now than to decapitate. Not decapitate. That's extreme. It's better to sting a person in the early stages than to severely injure them later on. So if you don't know, let it go. Heart Love says, hey, coach, is it a man's responsibility in a courtship to spiritually protect the lady? If so, to what extent, or is this solely God's role in a believer's life regardless? Great question. Is a man, okay, good question. Now I see what word I was looking for, courtship. The man is not responsible to offer husband duties, full husband benefits before marriage. There should be modified responsibilities. And what I mean by that in regards to a man's responsibility comes with roles. So until he becomes the role of a husband, then that responsibility kicks in, because that's just the proper order of things. But when it comes to protecting you, his attributes, his actions, his awareness should protect you from stumbling. And what I mean by that, he may not be in the position now to be able to, let's fast together, or let's come together and pray. Let's come together and do communion. Let's come together and do Bible. So let's come together and seek God together about this issue. In courtship phase, you do those things separately, because you still need to practice your time with God. Now, I did a video on my Good Guys channel about 5 benefits that boyfriend and girlfriend should receive. So we talk about this in length. Oh man, great talk. Let me make sure I find that graphic. But man, we talked in great lengths about that, and I think that will give you wisdom in regards to that. But in regards to your spiritual walk with God, that's God's responsibility, ultimately. But the man supports that. And in y'all's courtship, how a man supports that is, okay, I found it. And the way a man supports that is making sure that he walks with God, and his walk is not causing you to have those conflicts. This video right here on my Good Guys channel, only for the grown and married. We talk about the 5 benefits only reserved for husband and wives, only reserved for marriage, and we go in great lengths on the spiritual component, because a lot of people they bring the spiritual element into the relationship prematurely. The husband, the married version of that. And so spiritually he protects you by following God. That's simple as that. To what extent, like I said, he may pray for you. His walk daily is inspiring. His walk with God inspires you to walk with God in a greater way. The things that will protect you spiritually is when he's in his prayer time, covering you in prayer, because he's not in. See, it's hard for me to cover a business if I'm not a CEO. It's hard for me to cover a church. It's impossible for me to cover a business if I'm not the CEO. It's impossible for me to cover a church if I'm not the pastor. It's impossible or difficult to cover a wife if I'm not married to her, because there's something about a position in the spiritual world that garners respect, or that guarantees power. And until he gets into that position, he'll have the respect of a husband. And there's a difference between a fiance. There's a different type of power and a different level of respect than a boyfriend, a fiance, and a husband. When you get into the husband role, there's a little bit more respect now, because, he's in a position to actually effectively, efficiently cover her the way God has created him to be. But until he gets in that role, he's not able to cover you. But what he can do in courtship is to make sure you don't compromise, to make sure that he stays with God, and to ensure that everything flows according to God's plan for y'all two being together. So I hope that gave insight. That analogy should help a lot of people, that you can't cover a business you're not a CEO of. You can't cover a church if you're not a pastor. Now, you can support it with prayer. You can support it, but you can't cover it. Hope that helps.